hadn't planned to be out that night, much less at some random New Year's party hosted by a friend of a friend whose name I still don't know. But when you're single, recently dumped, and your roommate insists you need to get your ass out of your feelings, you end up standing on a rooftop in Brooklyn with a cheap cup of something vaguely alcoholic and warm breath fogging in front of your face. That's how it happened for me. I told myself I'd leave after 20 minutes. I wasn't in the mood. The cold had settled into my bones the minute we stepped outside, and everyone around me was either coupled up or trying hard to be. I checked my phone, 11:52 p.m. 8 more minutes, I thought. Then I'm ghosting. "Hey, you all right?" My roommate Zach asked, already tipsy, his arm around some guy he met 10 minutes ago. "Yeah. Just needed air." I lied. He nodded like he believed me. I doubted he did. I moved toward the edge of the rooftop, where it was quieter, the music muffled by distance and wind. The skyline stretched out in front of me like a postcard. There's something about city lights at night, how they make everything look important, even when you feel like nothing. That's when I saw him. He was leaning against the far railing, alone, cupping a drink in both hands like it might warm him through. He had that kind of look that made you notice him twice. Tall, dark coat, strong jawline, but soft eyes. He looked like someone who read a lot but didn't talk about it. I watched him for a few seconds longer than I meant to, then looked away before it got weird. But the thing is, when I glanced back, he was looking at me, not in that quick, accidental way, not the "who's this guy staring at me" way. No, he looked at me like he meant to, like he'd noticed me first, maybe. His gaze was steady, his mouth relaxed, and it threw me completely off balance. And still, I didn't look away. Neither did he. The countdown started behind us. 10. He took a step toward me. 9. I stood there, not sure what to do, suddenly wide awake. 8. And he looked at me, really looked at me, and smiled. 7. He was walking toward me now, slow and unhurried, like we weren't in the middle of a countdown, like time didn't matter. 6. I could hear the crowd growing louder behind us, but all I could focus on was the crunch of his boots on the gravel, the way his eyes never left mine. 5. He stopped just a few feet away, close enough that I could see the little breath clouds forming between us. His coat was dusted with snowflakes that hadn't melted yet. 4. He tilted his head, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Hey." 3. I managed to say. "Hey." Back, though my voice came out lower than usual. My throat felt tight for some reason. 2. His eyes flicked down to my lips, then back up. 1. Everyone shouted "Happy New Year" around us like it was the climax of something. Fireworks exploded somewhere off to the left. Cheers, whistles, couples kissing. It was chaos. Except here, where it was just him and me, barely a foot apart, both of us standing still like the world had gone on without us. He didn't lean in, he didn't move at all, actually. Just looked at me like he was giving me a choice. So I made one. I stepped closer and kissed him. It wasn't dramatic. No background music swelled, no slow motion magic. Just a soft, tentative kiss. Warm lips against mine, still cold from the wind. He didn't pull away. He leaned into it. His hand brushed mine, fingers grazing softly. My heart was pounding like it hadn't in months. When we finally pulled back, he looked slightly surprised, but in a good way. Like he hadn't expected that to happen, but was glad it did. "I'm Leo," he said, breathless. "Jay." He smiled again, and I realized I hadn't seen a real smile on my own face in weeks. Not since the breakup. Not since I'd convinced myself I didn't want this. Connection, risk, the whole mess. But standing there in that dumb paper party hat, on a rooftop full of strangers, with the air smelling like smoke and champagne, I suddenly didn't want to be anywhere else. "So," Leo said after a pause, "was that a New Year's thing or a you thing?" I blinked. "I don't really know yet." He nodded, like he got it. "Well," he said, nudging my shoulder gently, "I'm gonna vote for a you thing, if that's okay." It was. It really was. The morning after, Everything felt quiet. Not silent. Brooklyn doesn't really do silent, but there was a kind of stillness in the air as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mouth was dry, my brain a little foggy from the weak vodka. Someone had poured too generously into plastic cups, but the thing that kept circling my mind wasn't the party or the fireworks or the cold. It was him, Leo. That look in his eyes right before midnight, the way his hand brushed mine, like he wasn't sure yet if he was allowed to hold it. The way he stayed still after we kissed, like he was waiting to see if I'd disappear. And the weirdest part, I didn't want to. Not that night. Not now. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Zach. "You up?" "Don't answer that. I see your light." "I ordered bagels." I smiled. Classic Zach, nosy and weirdly maternal for someone who still didn't know how to clean a pan. I dragged myself out of bed and padded into the kitchen. Zach was already in a hoodie and pajama pants, leaning against the counter with 2 steaming cups of coffee. He handed me one without a word. "Bagels?" I asked. He pointed to the paper bag on the table. "Still warm." I took one, tearing off a chunk and chewing in silence. I could feel him watching me. "You gonna talk about it?" he finally said. "About what?" "Oh, come on. You kissed a guy last night. On a rooftop. At midnight. During the actual countdown. You think I didn't see that?" I sighed and leaned back against the fridge. "It wasn't a thing." He gave me a look. "Jay, everything about that looked like a thing." I didn't answer. Because, honestly, I didn't know how I felt. I'd spent the last few months wading through the wreckage of a bad breakup, convinced I was done with feelings, done with dating, done with trying. But then Leo looked at me, and I looked back. Zach lowered his voice. "Did you get his number?" I hesitated. "Yeah, he asked if I'd text him." Zach nodded like that settled it. "So, text him." I stared at my phone on the table. I didn't even have a message typed. I just had his contact saved under Leo, Rooftop, like he was a character from a movie instead of a real person I'd kissed 8 hours ago. "What do I even say?" I muttered. Zach grinned. "How about, 'Hey, I liked kissing you. Want to try that again when we're not surrounded by screaming strangers?'" I rolled my eyes. "Yeah, that won't be weird at all." But the thing was, Zach was right. I did want to see him again. Not just because of the kiss, though, yeah, that kiss had completely thrown me. It was something else. Something about the way Leo didn't try to impress me, or perform, or pretend the kiss didn't mean anything. Something about how seen I'd felt in those seconds before midnight. I picked up my phone and typed, "Hey, last night was unexpected, but in a good way. You around later?" 3 dots appeared almost instantly. He was still up. "I was hoping you'd text. You free this afternoon?" I smiled before I even realized it. I could be. "Coffee?" "Yeah, coffee sounds good." We met at a little place in Fort Greene that had mismatched chairs, too many plants, and a chalkboard menu with bad handwriting. It felt exactly right. Leo was already there when I walked in, sitting by the window with 2 coffees on the table, one black, one with milk. I pointed. "That one mine?" He nodded. "You looked like a milk but no sugar guy." I blinked, a little caught off guard. "That's creepy accurate." He smiled. "I watch people. I don't mean to. It just happens." I sat down, trying not to make a big deal out of the butterflies going berserk in my chest. He looked good in the daylight, less mysterious than last night, more real. Dark hair that curled slightly over his ears, a little stubble along his jaw, dark sweater layered over a white shirt, sleeves pushed up. He looked like someone you'd sit next to in a bookstore, the kind of person who smells like cedar and winter air. I tried to play it cool. "So, coffee, daylight, less fireworks this time." He chuckled. "I figured it was safer. Didn't want you to think I only show up under dramatic lighting." "Good call." We sipped for a while in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was thoughtful, like neither of us wanted to rush it. Then he asked, "So what were you thinking last night when you saw me?" I looked down at my cup, feeling my ears go hot. Honestly, I didn't think. That was kind of the problem. Didn't feel like a problem. I glanced up. His eyes were steady again, soft, the same way they looked at me across that rooftop. I cleared my throat. I'd just had a rough couple months. Last thing I expected was to kiss a stranger at midnight? Yeah, he nodded slowly. Me too. That surprised me. What, you don't usually make out with guys on rooftops? He smirked. I mean, I have a reputation to protect. I laughed, and the tension cracked a little. He was funny in that low-key way that catches you off guard, like everything he said had a second layer under it if you were paying enough attention. You live around here? I asked. Couple blocks down. I'm a grad student. Urban planning. That tracks. You look like someone who cares about sidewalk width, he cracked up. God, that is the most niche insult I've ever gotten. Not an insult, I said, smiling. Just an observation. I'll take it. We talked for over an hour. About little things. Mostly books we pretended to have read, the worst party we'd ever been to, how we both secretly hated the sound of those metal straw tumblers people carry around like emotional support bottles. And somewhere in there, I realized I wasn't nervous anymore. I was just there, with him. I like this, he said near the end. What? This. Us. Not pretending it was just a New Year's thing. I nodded. Yeah, me too. We walked out together. The sun was already setting, casting long shadows down the street. I wasn't sure what came next, if he'd suggest dinner, or a walk, or just say see you later. But before either of us said anything, he stopped, turned to me, and said, "Can I kiss you again? You know, sober, just to check." I laughed, surprised by how much I wanted that too. Yeah, I said, already leaning in. Go ahead, and he did. It was slow this time. No countdown, no noise. Just him, his hand gentle on the side of my neck, and the kind of kiss that makes you forget how cold it is outside. When we pulled back, he smiled like he already knew what I was thinking. Yeah, this wasn't just a New Year's thing. 3 weeks later, I was brushing my teeth at Leo's place, wearing his hoodie, and wondering when exactly this had stopped feeling casual. Not in a panicky way, more like in that quiet, creeping realization that this guy, this unexpected midnight kiss on a rooftop guy, had somehow wedged himself into my life without forcing anything. The first few days after that coffee date were all momentum. Texts that started mid-morning and didn't stop. Dinners that turned into sleepovers. That weird in-between stage where we weren't calling it dating, but I was leaving an extra toothbrush in his bathroom anyway. I never expected it to feel this easy. That night, we were curled up on his couch, half watching some low-budget crime show, my feet in his lap. I was running on 5 hours of sleep from work, but he kept running his fingers over my ankle without realizing it, and every time he did it, I forgot what exhaustion even was. Leo glanced over. You're zoning out. Thinking. Dangerous. I nudged him with my toe. Not that kind of thinking. Then what kind? I hesitated. The kind that makes me wonder how the hell I went from I'm never dating again to this. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you want this to be something?" The question didn't scare me. What scared me was how fast my answer came. Yeah, I do. He didn't smile right away. He just nodded, like he'd already been thinking the same thing, and now I'd just said it out loud. Me too. And that was it. No big drama, no declarations. Just two people on a couch, somewhere between tired and honest, figuring out what it meant to fall for someone without meaning to. A few nights later, we were in my apartment, mid-laundry night, folding shirts and throwing socks across the room like kids. Leo had just launched one at my head when I asked, half joking, "So what did you see in me on that rooftop?" He grinned, missing a fold. "You looked miserable." "Wow, thanks." "No, really?" he said, tossing the shirt down. "You were standing there like you wanted to disappear, like you were trying so hard not to care about the countdown." I shrugged. I wasn't planning to care. But you looked like someone who'd care if someone gave you a reason. I blinked. Leo didn't look away. I wanted to be that reason. That moment hit harder than it should have, and it stayed with me long after he went home that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how strange and beautiful it is. How you can go from being totally sure love isn't for you to waking up 3 weeks later wondering how you ever felt sure about anything. The first fight we had wasn't even a real fight. Not the kind with yelling or door slamming. It was the quiet kind. The kind where one person pulls back without saying why, and the other pretends not to notice. It started with a missed text. Nothing big. I'd asked if he wanted to come over after work. He didn't answer. Not for hours. When he finally did, it was a short, "Sorry, long day. Gonna just crash." Totally fair. Normal. Even. Except it happened again the next night. And again after that. By day 4, I couldn't ignore it. That familiar voice in the back of my head, the one I thought I'd left behind with my last relationship, was whispering all kinds of shit I didn't want to hear. "He's pulling away. This was fun, but maybe it's run its course. You made this more than it was." Again. I tried to brush it off. He was probably just tired. Work was crazy. People get distant. It didn't have to mean anything. But when I finally saw him again, Sunday afternoon, at a cafe we both liked, something was different. Leo was there first, as usual, sipping his drink and scrolling on his phone. He looked up when I walked in, smiled, and stood to hug me. But it felt stiffer than usual. Less instinctive, more polite. We sat, we chatted. The usual surface-level stuff. But I couldn't take it anymore. I put my cup down, hard enough that it made a dull thud on the table. "You okay?" He blinked. "Yeah, why?" "You've been kind of gone." He looked down at his cup. "I've just been busy. I know. And that's okay. But this feels like something else." He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "I don't know. I just needed space." There it was, that sinking feeling in my chest. I nodded, trying to stay calm. "Okay. Can I ask why?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Because this is getting real. Fast. And that freaks me out more than I expected. I wasn't expecting honesty. That always hits harder than lies." I sat back. "You could have just told me that." "I didn't know how," he said. "I didn't want to ruin whatever this is." I laughed, but it wasn't funny. Ghosting me for a few days doesn't really help with the not ruining it part. I know. We were both quiet, the weight of almost something hanging between us. Then Leo said, softer this time, "I like you. I didn't think I would. Not this much. Not this soon." My throat tightened. "I've been hurt before," he added, "and I guess I got scared. So I pulled back. Dumb instinct." I nodded slowly. "I get that. I've done the same thing." He looked at me. "Yeah?" "Yeah. Right before I met you, actually. Swore I was done. Then you showed up with that dumb black coat and looked at me like I was the only person on that roof." He smiled. The real kind. I leaned in, elbows on the table. "So what now?" Leo hesitated. Then he reached across the table, his hand closing gently over mine. "Now I stop running. If you'll let me." I squeezed his fingers. "Don't make me regret it." "I won't," he said, and for the first time in days, I believed him. After that day, things didn't go back to how they were. They got better, not in a fairy tale way. No grand gestures or sudden romantic epiphanies. Just quieter, closer, more intentional. Leo started texting me good morning. Not every day, not in a cloying way, but enough that I noticed it. We fell into a rhythm again. He'd show up with groceries. I'd surprise him with dumb memes. We started learning each other's patterns without meaning to. One night, we were cooking dinner at my place. Him chopping garlic, me badly attempting to fry tofu, and I looked over at him, sleeves rolled up, hair flopping into his eyes. He looked so at home in my space. I hadn't realized how much I wanted that. "You're good at this," I said, nodding toward the cutting board. He glanced up. "Garlic?" "Yeah. And this. Us." He paused, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "You're good at it too." Later, after we'd eaten and the dishes were drying in the rack, we ended up on the couch, both of us wrapped in the same blanket, legs tangled, some bad documentary playing in the background. I turned to him. "So what happens next?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "With us?" "Yeah." He was quiet for a second. Then, "Whatever we want." It was the simplest answer, and somehow, the most comforting. He leaned in and kissed me then. Soft, slow, familiar. Like something we'd both grown into without realizing it. That night, he didn't go home. We didn't have closeness. We just slept. His body curved around mine, like it had always been there, like it had always fit. I remember falling asleep to the sound of his breathing, steady and close, his fingers resting lightly on my chest. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was New Year's Eve again. Same city, same skyline, but everything felt different this time. We were back on a rooftop. Not the same one, not even close. This one belonged to Leo's coworker, and it had string lights, patio heaters, and real glasses instead of plastic cups. We'd been invited as a couple, which still felt weird to hear out loud, but I'd stopped correcting people weeks ago. Leo was standing next to me, one hand in the pocket of his coat, the other holding mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. His thumb rubbed slow, absent-minded circles over my knuckle, something he did when he was relaxed. "I was thinking about last year," he said suddenly, his breath fogging the air. "Yeah?" He nodded. "I almost didn't go to that party. I was tired. It was cold. I didn't know anyone there. I was about to turn around and leave when I saw you standing by the railing." I smiled. "Looking miserable," he laughed. "You did, but in a cute way." I bumped my shoulder against his. "Careful, you're getting sentimental. I'm allowed. It's the 1-year anniversary of our meet-cute." "You're really gonna call it that?" "I am," he said, grinning, "because if I don't, I'll forget that all it took was one stupid countdown for my entire life to change. That shut me up. Not because it was too much, but because it was true. For both of us, we stood there, side by side, watching the crowd start to buzz as midnight approached. Laughter, music, a champagne cork flying somewhere to our right. Leo looked over at me, his eyes lit from inside. "You remember what I said last year? When I asked if it was a New Year's thing or a you thing?" "Yeah." "Well," he said, squeezing my hand, "I'm still voting for you." The countdown began. 10. The voices got louder. The music faded behind it. 9. I turned to face him. 8. And he looked at me. Just like he did that first night. Like there was no one else in the world. Like he saw me completely. And this time, I didn't look away.